Good evening, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is Rich again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015, around 8:06 p.m. Very windy out, some clouds, and some breaks in the overcast. We could get some more rain tonight. Some news to report. Mavericks guard Rondo Raja is going to be out for a while with a back injury. His time with the Mavericks is probably over. And Patrice Bergeron's a finalist for the Selke Award. And the Charles River Skateboarding Park in Boston, Massachusetts finally broke ground after years of planning. And People magazine had names Sandra Bullock, actress, the most beautiful woman alive. That's a good choice, but I would have voted for Julie Broughton, Local 6, Orlando, Florida, if I had a vote, because she's so beautiful and she's got nice legs. Okay? My third and final video blog subject of the night is the person I profile, my continuing profiles of WWE managers who led their men to WWE Championship Gold. The next one I'm talking about is the Hollywood fashion plate, classy Freddie Blassie, the late great Freddie Blassie. Blassie was one of the most famous wrestlers of all time. Then he became one of the most famous managers of all time. He usually managed the foreign heels in the WWE for over 13 years. Freddie grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. He wanted to be a meat packer when he grew up. In fact, got a meat job after high school, but he loved watching professional wrestling and loved to box. So in 1935, he started professional wrestling. He was trained by a guy named Billy Hansen, and he was paid $1 for his first match. Plus, in addition, he boxed sometimes as well. He used to wrestle in like circuses and carnivals and stuff like that. During the war, Freddie served in the U.S. Navy for about 4 years, and after he got discharged from the Army, he went back to wrestle. He used a sailor gimmick, Sailor Freddie Blassie, but that gimmick did not last too long. Then he bounced around from territory to territory for wrestling. He didn't really become very big into the early 50s. Then he went to the Georgia territory. He dyed his hair blonde, and he became a heel, one of the most vicious heels of all time. He would bite his opponent and stuff. He would grind his teeth in interviews. He got the nickname Vampire. He was one of the most hated heels of all time. He won the Georgia championship several times, the NWA Florida title several times. He had so many vicious feuds with a lot of wrestlers. He wrestled in California a lot. He even became a big celebrity in California, mainstream. And he actually appeared on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and he also appeared on a talk show hosted by Regis Philbin. And he and Regis Philbin became good friends, lifelong friends after that. Also, Freddie Blassie wrestled in Japan. He wrestled Renzo Duke, one of the famous Japanese wrestlers of all time. Then in 1964, wrestled in the WWF, winning the phony Pacific Coast Championship. And he feuded with Bruno Sammartino there. In the late 60s, he mainly wrestled in California, but he became a good guy, and he was in his 50s. He feuded with such wrestlers as the original Sheik and John Tolis and so many of the other heels, and the fans were cheering him, even though he was, still doing the rule-breaking stuff and that, biting the opponents, but everybody was cheering for him and stuff like that. He was kind of like Stone Cold Steve Austin before Stone Cold Steve Austin. And in the early 70s, Freddie Blassie had him go back to the East Coast to the WWF. Because he couldn't wrestle in California anymore, because 55 years old, he couldn't get a wrestler's license. They still had wrestler's licenses back then. And he went to the WWF, and he was managed by Captain Lou Albano. He was the Pacific Coast champion still. That was a phony belt. He feuded with Pedro Morales for a while and Chief Jay Strongbow. But in late 1973, Freddie Blassie had an idea to Vince McMahon Sr. He says, I'm a good talker and stuff. I could become a manager because there's so many wrestlers in the WWF who the heels who don't have the color and stuff, and I could get them over by talking to them. At first, Vince McMahon Sr. Rushed the idea off, saying we got two good managers, Captain Lou Albano and the Grand Wizard of Wrestling, Ernie Roth, but he was convinced that Freddie Blassie would make a great heel manager. Freddie Blassie briefly was a manager like in California back in the mid-60s when he managed the Convict, who was Stan Frazier, aka Uncle Elmer. And finally, in 1974, Freddie Blassie became a heel manager. His first wrestler was Nikolai Volkov, and soon Freddie Blassie managed all the heel wrestlers, including Waldo von Erich, Baron von Raschke, Skandor, Akbar, the Wolf, Man Stan, the Lariat Hansen, Professor Tor Tanaka, Mr. Fuji, Bad News Allen. He's managed Victor Rivera, Spill Agnew, and so many others. He would always get the heel foreign wrestlers. He also managed Peter Maivia, Swede Hansen, and he would always talk a lot on the interviews. He would say, "You pencil that geek, you," and he was a good talker, Fred Blassie. Also, he trained Muhammad Ali to wrestle for a boxer versus wrestling match with Antonio Inoki in 1976. Also, Freddie Blassie got more mainstream publicity when he tried to have a record career and stuff like that, a singing career, which was pretty good and stuff. And he will always use his cane when he would interfere on the opponents and stuff. Freddie Blassie did not get in the ring after he retired as a wrestler, because that was more of Lou Albano's style. Plus, in addition, Freddie Blassie had very bad knees and stuff and a bad back, so they did not put him in the ring at all after that, except one match years later. And Freddie Blassie continued. In 1979, he was Hulk Hogan's first manager. Then he managed other wrestlers, the Hangman Man, Killer Khan, Adrian Adonis, Jesse Devati Ventura, Blackjack Mulligan, Dick Murdoch. He also managed Ivan Koloff. But the biggest wrestler that Freddie Blassie managed was in 1983. He managed the Iron Sheik. And classy Freddie Blassie, who was a Hollywood flash and plate, he became the Ayatollah Blassie and stuff like that. And he led the Iron Sheik to the WWE title against Bob Backlund at Madison Square Garden when Arnold Scullin threw in the towel. That was the first championship singles title that the Iron Sheik won, and it was first singles title that classy Freddie Blassie managed. He also managed Professor Tanaka and Mr. Fuji to the WWE tag team titles in the mid-70s and stuff like that. Also, Freddie Blassie developed a friendship with Andy Kaufman and stuff, the comedian. And they had a parody movie called My Breakfast with Blassie, was filmed in 1983 and stuff like that. It was a 90-minute movie, but it was all BS and stuff, but it was a good movie. And he was sad to see Andy Kaufman pass away in 1984 and stuff like that. Freddie Blassie continued to manage and stuff. He became your pencil neck geek and stuff. He managed the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov to the WWE tag team titles and at WrestleMania 1 1985, and using the cane. He says, "What cane? What cane?" And Fred Blassie continued to get more mainstream publicity. He was getting up there in age. He had one more final match against Captain Lou Albano in a steel cage match at Nassau Coliseum in October 1985. Freddie Blassie had to come down to the ring in a cane and stuff like that, and Captain Lou Albano was like won the steel cage match, but both men bled profusely. It was unbelievable and stuff like that. And the last man that Freddie Blassie managed was Hercules in 1986. By the summer of 1986, Freddie Blassie was like settling out of the ring because he suffered blindness in an eye and stuff. Plus, they wanted to phase him out because he was close to 70 years old. He was slated to manage the natural Butch Reed if he did not sell half the contract to Slick. and stuff, and he sold his share with the Iron Sheik, Hercules, Nikolai Volkov to Slick, and classy Freddie Blassie faded out of becoming a manager. Then he became a goodwill ambassador to the WWE. When the WWE was sold from Vince McMahon Sr. to Vince McMahon Jr. in 1982, one of the people that Vince McMahon Sr. wanted Vince McMahon Jr. to take care of for the rest of his lifetime was classy Freddie Blassie, and he lived up to that word. Classy Freddie Blassie made a lot of appearances on WWE TV and stuff, made a lot of like goodwill appearances and stuff all over the place for years and stuff. 1994, classy Freddie Blassie was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. There was rumors when the Monday Night Wars happened in 1995 that WCW was going to recruit Freddie Blassie as either a commissioner or a commentator, but Freddie Blassie was denied it because said no way, because he was never going to kick the balls of Vince McMahon Sr. or Jr. because it would be spitting on Vince McMahon Sr. grave. And Fred Blassie won Lifetime Achievement Award for Slammies in 1996. His health was kind of deteriorating over time and stuff. Eventually he was in like a wheelchair and stuff. He made some appearances 2001 during the Invasion angle. His last appearance before he passed away was 3 weeks before he passed away in 2003, in June of 2003, to promote his autobiography, Listen Your Pencil Neck Geek, and it happened in Philadelphia and stuff, and he was going to be attacked by 3 Minute Warning, but the Dudley Boys came and rescued the day, and Freddie Blassie said, "Devon, get the tables!" This happened on Raw. Classic Freddie Blassie passed away in June of 2003 of age 85, but before he passed away, he wanted to like get up and go because he was suffering from a lot of ailments and stuff. Well, it was sad to see classy Freddie Blassie go, but he was up there in age. He's one of the most famous wrestlers of all time, and he was a good manager as well, so he's one of those few guys in the world of professional wrestling to be a good wrestler and a good manager, and that's a good combination. He was a very good talker and stuff, and very, very mainstream star for wrestler, and for because of his like being in a few movies and his friendship to Regis Philbin, which he appeared on Regis Philbin's talk show so many times. That's about it on Classy Freddie Blassie. That's about it on these video blogs, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We will be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow with 3 more video blogs. The first video blog will be about the classic the classic comedy drama movie Mrs. Doubtfire with Robin Williams that came out in 1993. Second video blog will be about my take on the parody of Jim Ross with Oklahoma, who was Ed Ferreira in 1999. And the third and final video blog of the night will be about the late great WWE Hall of Fame manager Arnold Skaaland. Don't forget, coming soon to these video blogs, lots more stuff, including personal profiles of the late great Miss Elizabeth, WWE manager, and Mr. Fuji, WWE Hall of Famer, and Jim Cornette, former professional wrestling manager, and the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, WWE Hall of Famer. And we're going to get more with the Bruins versus Canadians rivalry, more sports issues, real sports with Brian Gumbo, the cute leggy blonde series, including Molly Rosenblunt and Amy Swenzy and Elizabeth Hart, who are like meteorologists in Orlando, Florida. And there's going to be about my memories of the Boys and Girls Club Greater Bellwether, plus in Interest and Fairness. Before that, I have to do my memories of the Boys and Girls Club of Somerville, which I was a member of the Boys and Girls Club of Somerville before I was a member of the Boys and Girls Club Greater Bellwether. We have to be fair to this, because I don't want to do one without the other, and I have to do the thing that came before, because like what Willy Wonka's what says, you can't go back to go forward, you have to go forward to go. You can't go back to forward, you gotta go forward to go back. And soon, very soon, guests will be on these video blogs. I'm shooting for the sky for Julie Broughton and Michelle Beto and Heidi Watney. Good night, see you tomorrow, and get out, as John Lucha would say.